Hi, my name is Sister Helen, and you are watching the Italian American Podcast. Enjoy!
See that you're born an Italian if you want your life to be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great.
How about some Donadell?
That's a nice.
So John is on an airplane headed for Italy, and I'm here, and he offered me to go, but I said, I love you too much to leave you guys without an episode. So I am here, and who do I have joining me as a co-host? You're in town. You're on multiple episodes, right, as we're filming here.
Always
the
a
great
pleasure.
Cavaliere Marianna Gato, the foundress of the Italian American Museum of Los Angeles. But you seem to have a great love for the New York metro area.
I do.
Why you would come out here in this frigid cold is beyond me.
I love it.
You left, what, 78 degrees?
I think it was in the 80s yesterday.
Oh, damn, man, young daughter, 80 degrees, and you flew out here.
Love it.
Wow, good for you.
4 seasons.
Because I would swap out. I don't know if I'd be full-time LA, but I would definitely be in LA in December.
Well,
And-
forgive me for repeating myself, but when your entire childhood is 78 degrees and sunny, you start to appreciate a little variety. And I love the cold. It's just
You told me
lovely.
you had a childhood fantasy for wearing mittens one day.
Correct.
So as a child,
I
you
would.
read...
I was a voracious reader, and I would read these, novels about kids living in New England who would go ice skating, and they wore mittens, and it was just such a strange concept for me because the only ice rinks that we had were indoors, and I don't think I owned a pair of mittens. So it's the cold weather envy.
But isn't like one day enough? Wasn't it like
No,
once in a lifetime?
love it.
Like come out once with the mittens and go home?
Love it. When it was 17 degrees the other day, I was so happy.
Are you serious? And you like walking around New York?
I do.
Now, the other thing, I mean, I guess people have gotten to know you as a regular co-host on the program, but you are God bless you, you are an intrinsically, artistically talented person.
I got that from my father. God bless him.
That is that's definitely the DNA. Because what you do not know, I've asked Nikki to film, but Nikki has not filmed. I got to yell at you, Nikki, behind me. We are constructing my Presepio. So for what, 20 years, flying back and forth to Naples, Italy, I amassed a Presepio, which I have never publicly exhibited. And we are exhibiting it now at the store. I figure the piece is about 150 pieces, figurines we have. Mm-hmm. But you are working on the backdrop.
On the backdrop. And next year we're going to do an even better job because I'll have more. I'll
You're
have
gonna do better
advance
next year?
notice and I'll create something really fabulous.
What would you do differently?
I might get like different fabric, maybe some more like kind of natural canvas, more Italian. I just basically went to the craft store with you and then to the fabric store this morning, and it was all kind of, mishmash. But
See,
next
thank
year,
you.
more planning.
But we are often on the same wavelength.
It's a great honor. It makes a
we're on
Christmas
we're on the
season.
same wavelength because I can see now that John is never probably going to see this and he's on an airplane, so I can say what I want to say. So I told John in October, right after San Gennaro, let's put up the Presepio. It's going to take time. No. We can do it in like an hour, right? Let's put it up. It's taken a month to put this thing up. I warned them. Nobody listened to me.
Well, you got to
I
put me in
warned them.
charge earlier next year.
You
and
could
I'll-
do it now because I bought the pieces, but I have absolutely no artistic talent whatsoever.
I love it. It's making the season for me.
So you are now deputized as the. I'm sure there's a presepiera. There's somebody who makes a presepi, but because I bought the pieces just to have them, but I have no decorative person in me.
It kind of goes along with constructing the St. Joseph tables, the altars. So it's
that's
just
what, yeah.
it makes the season.
So now I want to introduce everyone to our guest that we have here. This is the first nun. You are probably the first religious we have in podcasting.
Oh, okay.
We have the proto nun of podcasting. Sister, why don't you
know about
introduce yourself to everyone on air?
Okay, I'm Sister Helen Sanchez. I have been in the community since 1967. I entered as a high school student and have loved being part of the community and have enjoyed many, many surprises from God as a result of being in the community.
Now, people are going to wonder why. Now, you know me well enough to know why I have a nun on there. But why do I have this specific nun at this specific time of year from this specific order? So, sister, you have to understand, there's a lot of people who watch this, they have no idea. They don't know why you're wearing what you're wearing or what a community is or what an order is. I got to give everybody the background on this. So, sister belongs to the Filipinis. Now, a lot of times I say that and people think they're Filipinos. They're not Filipinos. The Filipino
Right.
sisters are named the Maestra Pia Filippini, the Religious Teachers Filippini, as you've translated in English.
Right.
Which was a 17th century, right? Or that's 15th. I always get
No,
confused.
no, no. It's 17th century.
17th century.
Yes.
St. Lucy Filippini, the founder of your congregation, gathered a group, and I'm going to give the simple version, and you could just jump in. Gathered a group of women catechists. Would that be the right word?
Well, yeah, they were teaching religion, yes.
They were religious. She gathered a group of teachers around her and formed them into a religious community. Would you
Right.
say that's an accurate?
Yes.
Right. And that's how religious orders get born. That's how
Most of
religious
the
orders
time,
happen.
yes.
And what happened was, to speed up a little bit, so you were teaching in schools in Italy.
Yep.
Way back when. And I think it had to be Archbishop Walsh, who was Bishop Walsh of Trenton at the time.
Well, in 1910, it was Pope Pius X who said, I need Italian nuns to go to America because there's so many Italian migrants and immigrants who need somebody to support them and educate them. So we went down to St. Joachim's.
Was that the story I heard? Was Bishop Walsh was the guy who made that happen?
No, it happened before Bishop Walsh, and it was because of an Italian pastor who
At St.
went
Joachim's.
at St. Joachim's in Trenton.
In Trenton, Chambersburg section of Trenton.
And he went down up to Rome asking for nuns. And he asked Mother Rosa Leone, I need nuns to go to Trenton. And she said, I don't have any. And he went to the Pope, and the Pope said, Mother, you will send 5 sisters to Trenton. Shortly after that, Bishop Walsh was appointed as
Okay.
the
Bishop of
head
Trent-
of the Trenton Diocese. And Mother Ninetta, who was one of the 5 sisters, went to visit him to welcome him to Trenton. And he was the one who really took the lead in taking care of it, helping the sisters to have better housing, better
'Cause
education.
you were in rough shape. When you came here, you had rough conditions. They were
yeah.
true missionary. From what I've read, they were rough conditions that
Well-
you had in Trenton because everybody was poor. So you're in a parish of a lot of poor people,
Right.
And you fit right in with your
Well,
the parishioners because it was a rough situation.
They were very supportive of the sisters because at one point an Irish pastor came in and he wanted to bring Irish nuns, and the Italian ladies confined him to the auditorium and said, you will keep our sisters here. So our sisters ended up staying, and he ended up being changed. But Bishop Walsh really took the lead, got us a mother house in Trenton, and
That's Villa Victoria.
right, and helped our sisters to get educated at Georgian Court, and that thus they could
So
open
Georgian
a
Court, for those who don't know, that's a basically a nun college in New Jersey at that
It
time.
was
at that time
at that
teach
time, yeah.
teach religious sisters
right.
to how to teach. Because I've taught college for 18 years as an adjunct,
Oh, God bless
and
you.
I had one. Thank you. Yeah, good. Any sins I've done, I'm working off. But I had a student one time because I'm the product of 21 years of Catholic education.
Okay.
From kindergarten
Great.
all the way to law school. I never
Oh.
was in a classroom that didn't have a crucifix. And the student said to me, he's like, oh, did you learn science in a Catholic school? And I'm like, there's more, what are those holes on the moon called? Craters?
Yeah.
There's more craters named for Jesuits than anybody else on the moon. I mean, we invented the university, astronomy, science. But a lot of people don't realize that the first PhD in nuclear physics was a nun. In the 1960s, more nuns had PhDs than any other subsector of women. So for those of you who don't know, you were leaders not only in educating, but of being educated.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
institutions like Georgian Court helped. Matter of fact, Joseph Marbach, who was the former, I had him as a professor in Seton Hall. He's just left as president at Georgian Court. So the nuns, for those of you who don't know, nuns went to school to learn how to teach. And a lot of times you spent your summers getting advanced degrees.
That's right.
Master after master, PhD after PhD.
Yeah, well, we had masters.
And Bishop Walsh was very good to the sisters, and he was very good to the Italians of the Archdiocese of Newark. So many dioceses had, and I can say this: my father's Irish off the boat. I have the tribal license. A lot of Irish bishops were not that welcoming to Italians, or a lot of the immigrant groups that came who were not Irish who came into the United States, and there was a lot of problems with Irish nuns teaching in Italian parishes. Well, there's one thing. If you take, so the sisters got to Trenton, I think 1917?
We were there in 1910.
1910, okay.
Yeah.
And when did you get Villa Walsh?
Well, what happened was Bishop Walsh of Trenton becomes Archbishop Walsh of the Archdiocese of Newark. So he says, I want your home base in my diocese, because at that time, all of North Jersey was Archdiocese of Newark. So he ended up helping our sisters to find the property we now have, and it was named Villa Lucia after our foundress. And in honor of all that Bishop Walsh had done for us, we renamed it Villa Walsh. So that's why we're up there now. We've been there since about 1929.
Absolutely beautiful property.
It is. It's a beautiful home.
Stunning. You have an all-girls high school still?
We have a girls' school there from grades 7 to 12. Very successful school. It's over 50 years now that we've been there.
And for those who aren't familiar, what is like the mission or some of the key teachings of the order?
Well, it's interesting because our order began in Italy to help girls and women because they were not being educated in the 1700s. And we have followed through on that with every country we've gone to, whether we're talking Africa, whether we're talking South America, whether we're talking Asia. We focus on helping girls and women, getting them to have a possibility of improving their life and their futures. So Lucy Filipini, back in 1700, was helping women to sew and learn to read and write so that they could have a decent dowry and have a decent marriage. In our countries, whether we're talking Ethiopia and Eritrea.
So they're the countries where your order serves.
Right. And those
Brazil,
sisters,
and you're an Italian-based international order.
Right. America was our first mission country, and then in 1962 we went to Brazil, South America. In 67 we went to Ethiopia, and then in 70 we went to India, and then the last one was in Albania, which was a communist country, and so we really started from scratch there because they didn't even understand what it meant to be Christian. Wow. So it was very interesting to see the development of the community starting from the Italian roots.
And a big reason I have wanted to have the Filipini sisters on for years. We're celebrating 10 years of the podcast this year. I think we did the 400th episode.
Oh, wow.
Because you've been so integral to the Italian experience in the United States. Mm-hmm. Specifically, like I know you were in parishes in New Jersey. Where, sister? I mean, you would know better than me. New Jersey, Ohio.
New Jersey, Ohio, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island. We've been in Pennsylvania, and now we're currently in Orlando, Florida, and in Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
Because so many, with the podcast, we've been all around the country. The Italians in Nebraska, and the Italians in Arkansas, Iowa, California, and now, especially with the movie, Mother Cabrini's story is very well known, right? That's kind of like and people know the Cabrini sisters, and I guess they were more in I could put it in plain English, the orphanage business, right? More than teaching schools and hospitals, and back then there was a big need, because I'm from North Arlington, in Kearney, New Jersey. I don't know if I said on the podcast before. Mother Cabrini built an orphanage. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people don't understand what an orphanage was when a man was working a 60-hour week in some horrific factory or a coal mine, and you would lose a wife young when you'd have 10 kids who were like under 15. A lot of times these husbands would leave the children with the sisters, leave them with whatever money they had, go back to Italy, remarry, come back, and then the sisters they would take the children from the sisters and start a second family. But the sisters were what allowed them, because they didn't have the social net that they would have had in Italy of aunts and uncles and cousins around and parents to help with raising them. So a lot of these orphanages were not children who were, some were totally orphaned, but some were parents who had lost a spouse and they couldn't feed them. You know, they just couldn't feed them. So that was a lot of the work Mother Cabrini did. Mother Cabrini did the work with the hospitals. But I think that the Filipini nuns have never gotten their fair share of the spotlight of having run the schools.
Well,
You
we
ran the
did.
schools.
yeah, we did many schools, especially in the New Jersey area.
The Archdiocese of Newark was your number one.
Well,
had
because
so many-
Archbishop
Walsh
Walsh was
loved you.
here.
Archbishop Walsh loved you.
And he had rules for our sisters. He said, you have to learn the Italian. We don't want you to lose your heritage. Be well educated. You must also learn music. So for years, our sisters had a sisters choir. They helped teach the new liturgy in the diocese. And the Schola Cantorum was famous in the diocese, and we still promote music in our schools, whether we're talking Villa Walsh Academy or Villa Victoria Academy. Music is still a very big part of our lives.
If I went to high school with a lot of kids who had gotten a Filipini education. As we were discussing, I am a product of 12 years of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Chestnut Hill. And you had the same order in grammar school.
I did. I had
And
them.
we shared a nun,
Yes,
right?
Sister
When
Kathleen.
I had her when she was Sister Kathleen. You had her when she was Sister James Robert. Because when she entered, they had a religious name, and then she flipped the religious name. There was always confusion because you could demarcate. I think she changed it in 78. Anybody who had her before 78, she was James Robert. Anybody she had after 78 was Kathleen McDonough. And she was actually the May Queen. I was telling you, 1943, because she came back to teach a Queen of Peace, but she was a vocation of the parish.
Yeah, I
She
didn't realize
Yeah, she was
that.
one of our
Yeah.
trophies. But you had we got so much to talk today, because you had Sisters of St. Joseph in grammar school,
Right.
And so often, girls entered the order of the nuns that they had in grammar school because that's what they were familiar with. But what's your story that you did not become a Josephite, but that you became a Filipini?
They did wonder about that, even my family. What happened was Monsignor Furlong was the vocation director for the Archdiocese. And in 65, all the 7th grade girls of the diocese had to go to Seton Hall University for a vocation rally. And I remember looking at the Filipini nuns there and saying, they can't be real nuns. They're showing their hair. What kind of nuns would show their hair?
Because their habit was a bonnet.
Right.
So before the council, they probably had the most liberal,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
that
they
was
didn't-
a autochthonous habit that was native to their own.
Yeah, our sisters never wore veils because in Italy, the nuns who wore veils were monastic orders. And our sisters were working in the parishes, they were giving retreats, they were teaching, they were doing work with women.
Yeah, so
and-
for people, a lot of people don't, especially our younger listeners, right? That's we tend to Gen Z. I mean, we have people who've never met a nun, right? Which is unbelievable to me. But
Oh, no, it's real.
So if they can understand, so when you talk about monastic nun, that's like a Carmelite or a cloistered Dominican. They're the nuns that you see that they're behind 4 walls and they're praying all day in a cloister.
well, not all day, but
well,
yeah,
they're pretty much. I mean, you're busy.
that's their main mission.
That's their main mission is prayer. You were an active order.
Right.
So your religious life was different because with active orders, it's like your order or Mother Cabrini's order, any of the other orders, you're taking care of hospitals and schools. So your foundress was an active order. That's why your habit was a little bit simpler because
Right.
you were working.
Boots on the ground.
And because we weren't going to be confined by, see, the orders who were cloistered took vows, and vows were more restrictive. We were going to be taking an oblation, which is saying, I offer my life as a sacrifice to God. Will I practice poverty, chastity, and obedience? Yes. But I don't do it because it's the rule. I do it because I want to be a religious teacher. And I want to offer my life to God as a sacrifice. So our sisters, all these years, have worked in schools, teaching children the faith, because if we're not running a school, we're doing the religious ed program in this parish. Now, recently, we're also doing more campus ministry, youth ministry work. So it's important for us to show that, we're faithful to our mission right from the beginning.
In your own vocation story, did you always want to be a nun? 'Cause for those who don't know, my father's sister's a nun. That's all, and we had spoken about that. My aunt just wanted to be a nun. Like my aunt, some people have that vocation story, like God pick someone, don't pick me. My aunt was a kid flipping through the vocation, the missionary magazines, and her thing was who is she going to join. But my aunt always wanted to be a nun. Was that your story, or did you have a different story coming to religious life?
No, because actually before I had the Josephites, I was in public school, and I always wanted to be a teacher, because I thought I could do a better job than the ones I had, which is probably a little bit egotistical. But what happened was my mom transferred us into this Blessed Sacrament in Newark because she wanted us to have a good Catholic foundation for the sacraments. And so when I started being with the sisters and going to that vocation rally, I realized, you know what? I may have a vocation. So I wrote to Monsignor Furlong. I did not know at the time that he was the confessor to the Filipini sisters. He would go there every week to hear their confessions. So he knew the sisters very well. And he wrote to me and said, I know where you should go. I've arranged for you to visit Villa Walsh. You're going to spend the weekend with the nuns. And that changed it for me because I knew I fit right in. I felt very comfortable with the sisters. They were very welcoming. And it was December. Probably about, must have been 1966, this time of the year.
And the convents, was that our peak year or 65? For
It would have
religious in the U.S., there's
it was
65
around then.
was like
Yeah,
the peak.
it was around then.
So
yeah.
I'm assuming that the Villa Walsh was packed.
Well,
when
it
you
wasn't
entered.
packed, but we had like 10, 15 girls in each group. You call them group or class because they, were taking the same courses and following the same schedules. So, yeah, we had 14 at the time.
And you become tighter sisters because that's like your class, I'd imagine,
Oh,
right?
sure,
That's like
yeah.
your buddies because
Oh,
you
yeah.
all
Your
entered religious
cohort.
life, your cohort that you all entered together.
Mm-hmm.
How did it go over at home when you came home and said, I want to be a Filipini?
My mom didn't know the community, so when she came up and met the sisters, she felt very comfortable with the sisters. She realized, even though, there were people who said you should join a Spanish order, you're Puerto Rican. My mother said, no, if the sisters want you and you feel comfortable, I would love for you to join them. My father, on the other hand, he wasn't, it didn't matter to him. What you want to do, you do. Yeah.
Now, sister, you brought up a great point, right? And I had said this earlier on. God sends you what God wants to send you. You can
That's
send the
right.
order and you get what you want to get. So like I said, I want to do this episode for years because I want to talk about Italian teaching communities of religious nuns who staffed, not exclusively, but almost entirely Italian national parishes.
That's right.
And I had grown up with people who had gone to Filipini parishes, Filipini run schools, and the Italian approach to religious vocation is a little bit different. So, and like I was saying before, having an aunt, my father's sister, who's not only a nun, but a missionary nun in Pakistan is like the Irish gold.
Wow.
I mean, that's the Maserati of Irish culture, right? I mean, you could only beat that maybe with a missionary priest, and it'd kind of be neck and neck, right? So I just didn't have a nun; I had a missionary nun. So when they went in years ago, that was a big, here comes our status symbol. But the Italian families fought vocations a lot. So that, I'm going to lose you, you're going to die. But that's how I had planned this episode. But sister comes and I find out that sister's Puerto Rican. I said, how am I going to have an Italian? Because now your mom's like patting you in the back compared to the Italian stories I heard. Mother's screaming, mother's crying, mother's driving out to Villa Walsh, please don't take my daughter. But the reason why I bring that up is that another topic, besides the Philippines, I had always wanted to do, and you fit perfectly into this, were Puerto Ricans in Italian parishes. Now, to a lot of our listeners, like, well, what does that have to do? Because the Puerto Ricans came, I guess, beginning in the 20s and 30s. They were the first ones that came, and then the waves began to come in the 50s. And Puerto Ricans, as Latins, probably because you're from California, you had Mexicans as the other Latins. Puerto Ricans were like the second wave of Latins, Catholics, who come to the United States. In so many Italian parishes or cities, when the Puerto Ricans landed, they sent the Puerto Ricans to the Italian parish. And I could say that was the case in Jersey City with Holy Rosary, which was an Italian parish, staffed by Filipini nuns. And in the 50s, they began to take in the Puerto Rican children because the Irish up at the Chancery thought, well, they're Latins and they'll all fit in. So I'm glad you can come here that we can discuss that a little bit. How did it feel from your Puerto Rican Latin background coming into an Italian religious community and teaching in Italian parishes?
Well, going into the institute, we call it an institute, it was feeling very comfortable. I didn't know Italian, but the girls I was with, even though they were Italian background, they didn't know Italian either. So we were all studying Italian. And the funny part was, because I knew Spanish, I was learning it faster than they were. And it turned out that in the long run, I ended up being an interpreter for the community in Italy. But going into working in the community felt very comfortable. The sisters were warm and friendly, like Italians are. Going into Italian parishes, at first, you're a Puerto Rican, you're going to be teaching our children. Yes, you're going to like it. And they started to realize that it wasn't the Puerto Rican who was teaching their children. It was an Italian Filipini sister who was teaching their children. So that we were doing Italian customs, as well as, because many of my children became Hispanic, we would combine. Let's do an international kind of Christmas program where we'll do Spanish and Italian, and you're going to learn the Italian songs, but we'll also do, a posada episode, so that it became, no matter which parish I went to, because I was in Hackensack, I was in Garfield, very Italian.
Give
there.
us the whole list, sister, of all your assignments. Let's get the whole rundown.
West New York, Akron, Ohio, St. Joe's and Hamilton. We very Italian places. And yet, I was very much accepted because of being part of the community and helping the children to appreciate the cultures of both, whether it was, the Hispanic, because they were the new ones coming into the school and parish, or the Italians who had second, third, fourth generations. We blended and we could appreciate each other, and it became really a wonderful, wonderful mixture.
What satisfaction? So many people wonder, why become a nun, right? It's such a foreign concept to a modern mind, right? Like, don't you want children? Don't you want a family, right? But you had children and a family, but in a different sense. How could you explain to a Gen Z kid who's never met a nun, who's maybe not even, so many of our listeners know that they're coming from a post-religious background, in a de-Christianized America. How can you explain to somebody why you would, the oblation, why you would sacrifice having a physical husband, family, home, children, to be a mother to other people's children?
Well, I think part of it is that, I think of what I say to my own students, because I do teach about vocation. And I tell them, first of all, you've got to know yourself, know your talents, know your gifts, know where you belong in this world. And if you're a person of faith, you're going to trust that God's going to help you in your journey. So for my students, when they ask me, what do you do all day? What do you do? Do you wear pajamas at night, or do you wear that? Do you keep the hat on? No, I don't keep the hat on at night. It's the kind of thing where I try to make them understand. My reason for joining was because I really felt called. I felt that God needed me to do what I do. Being with the sisters has given me such joy. So many experiences I never would have had if I had married and had children. When I was in 4th grade, I was planning to get married and have children. But by 7th grade, when I went to Seton Hall, I realized, no, that's not my calling. My sisters are all married. My brothers are all married. I'm the only nun in the family. But you know what? They have learned to respect my choice, and I've appreciated their choice. I'm the aunt that can spoil all their children. Being a teacher, I get to know the students sometimes better than their own parents because I spend so much time with them. I get to be the one they can consult about things that are concerning them or worrying them. They listen to my stories because I've had so many different experiences, and I can help them to face some of the challenges they're facing. So it's been a wonderful experience with the students sharing my life, and they're so curious all the time. It's like, sister, you went to Africa, you went to Brazil, you went, what did you see? What did you do? What was it like? And helps them to be prepared for the challenges and the exciting things that are going to happen in their lives.
Piggybacking on that, what advice would you offer a young woman who's considering the vocation?
Well, I just had a young woman with us last weekend, and what I told her was, first of all, pray. Pray. Is this what God is asking you to do? Secondly, to get someone to consult, a spiritual director. Might be a priest, might be a sister, someone that you can really share your prayer, your life with, so that you can discern, is this something that I'm called to? I told her also, get to know yourself. Where are your strengths? Because she's thinking, should I be a sister, a Filipini sister? And I said, well, do you want to be a teacher? Because if you want to be a nurse, then I would recommend a different community. If you want to be, a social worker, different community. So that that's really what they need to look at. Where are my talents, my strengths? How can I use them for the benefit of others? And, ask the Lord to guide you.
You mentioned earlier some surprises from God along the way. Could you share a few?
Okay. I learned Italian well enough that I could be a translator in Italy. We have a little hotel in Rome.
I've been by there. That's right by the Jesuits, right? Right by the Jesuit? Is that right?
Yes, right around the corner. And we had another one at the time up the street from the Vatican. So they needed someone who was bilingual. So I went there for a summer to help because I was teaching during the school year. And then Mother General at the time says, I think you should stay. So living up the street from the Vatican, getting to go to papal masses and audiences, helping people and meeting people from all over the world, funny stories and episodes. We had a group from Vietnam stay with us, and they couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak Vietnamese, and yet we got along pretty well. To have that experience, to get elected to be an advisor to Mother General and visit our missions in Ethiopia, Albania, Brazil, India. It was amazing to see the work our sisters were doing in different countries. And I tell my students, if anybody had said to me, a little girl growing up in Newark is going to be a missionary visiting these countries, a translator for an Italian Mother General, I would have said, you must be on drugs. There's no way that's going to happen to me. And yet, God surprised me and had that happen.
How has education changed since you first entered or began teaching?
How's teaching changed since when I first started, I was teaching in Hackensack. I was teaching children who had just come off the boat from Italy, children who had just come from South America, and American students. So I was teaching in 3 languages all day long. It was frustrating and yet incredible because they learned so quickly and they had such wonderful experiences together. But we also had parents who absolutely trusted us to do whatever we needed to do to help their children to learn. I visited their homes. I would visit a different family each week.
Wow.
So it was a welcoming, supportive atmosphere. More recently, kids are not living close to their schools, so that it became impossible to visit every family because they're just so far apart, and kids are coming and being bussed in, and sometimes the demands that are being made on the children are very, very stressful for them. And so teaching today, you're not just teaching a subject, you're also helping a child to cope with some of the challenges of stress, of sometimes illness, disabilities. It can be very frustrating for them.
It's almost, you said, you choose a vocation based on your interest, and obviously yours was teaching, but then as a teacher, you also are the social worker, the counselor, the psychologist, sometimes, as you mentioned, like an extension of the home, a parent, an aunt.
Because the Catholic school is a community.
Yeah.
You minister to the families. Good times, bad times. You got
You're
kids
there
with
to
family
support.
dysfunction. You take a step more.
Well, and because that's part of our mission. It's a ministry. It's not just a job. So that, I have a student who's stressed. Sit down. What's going on? Sister, I can't cope again. I have too much homework. I have to... Okay, let's take one thing at a time. Let's talk about what you need to do. I had just this week, one student, she was out because she's having a physical sickness. And it's like, okay, relax. You have time to get the assignments. I'm writing to you every day, telling you what we're doing. You'll be fine. And the parents appreciate that because they know we're doing the best for their daughters.
Like I said, because religious life is so foreign to so many young people today. So having an aunt in the family, right? People don't realize you're a human being, right? You're a person at the end. You have bad days, days you wake up cranky, days you really don't feel like going to school. What are some of the challenges of being a religious? And what is some of the support you have? Because when you keep speaking about your community, you're talking about the other sisters that live with you, right? And it's a family that's always changing. Because when you were in Akron or you were in Hackensack, it's different nuns, right? It's different members of your community. What are the and also, I guess, like I said a lot of times, I worked in a rectory for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Right, that's the toughest job in the world, right? Because you got to live. A rectory is like where priests live. Because you got to live with the people you work with, and think about not being able to stand somebody you work with, and then working with them all day, and then sleeping in the room next to them and having dinner and lunch with them and breakfast, right? Just like having a family member you can't stand, right? Life is life. What are some of the we talked about all the positives. What are some of the challenges of religious life, and how does community work into that?
Well, I think today some of the challenges are that because we're fewer, you have multiple jobs. Like I'm a teacher part-time. I am the vocation director, and I'm also the formator. I'm the person who's training the young sisters to be finally professed. So sometimes having multiple jobs is a challenge. I think today also the realistic part of it, the median age for most sisters today is much higher. So you're dealing with, living and enjoying the sisters, but also recognizing, they need more help. They're physically not as strong or mentally confused, and so you want to help the sisters where you can. I live at Villa Walsh, and there's 24 sisters in the one house, and then we have an infirmary, and there's 27 there who need the help of nurses.
For those who don't know, the infirmary is where it's basically the retirement home for sisters who need that level of care at old age.
Right, that level of care of nurses and doctors. So they're, in a separate entity because they can get more help there. And yet, I bring my students over. We sing for them for Christmas carols. We went over there when the girls were dressed in their Halloween costumes to cheer them up. So that the challenges today are, you love these sisters. You've been with them for years, and yet you need help to continue to care for them.
And the beauty, for those who don't understand, of Villa Walsh is you have a school from 7 to 12 on the same campus as the old age home, basically for the sisters, right? So you have the beginning of life and you have the end of life. And the young girls are learning about life because they see, those sisters were all young at one time too. But it also it's a shot in the arm of youth into the infirmary,
right?
Where you have sickness, death, doctors, and everyone else around you. It's probably a lot of fun for them when the girls come in from the high school to cheer them up and give them a little bit of company.
Well, and just recently the girls all wrote notes to the sisters, And, sister, I'm so-and-so, and I do this, and I do this. What do you like to do? And then the sisters write back. And so it becomes almost like a pen pal kind of thing for the girls, and to have a relationship with someone who's older, because they may not have that. We don't have families that you have multiple generations living close to each other. So for the girls, sometimes this is the first time they're interacting with somebody in their 80s, 90s. Sister's 100 years old? Really? I've never met anybody who's 100 years old. And they get excited about that.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, what do you feel is the most meaningful part of your vocation?
The most meaningful part. I would hope it would be being able to share what God has given me, even on a daily basis, with those around me. They call me the Energizer Rabbit because I'm running around all the time. I have so much energy. And so to do things for the sisters, whether it's decorating the tables in the dining room, or whether it's setting up the songs for the masses we're going to sing for Christmas, or whether it's this week we'll be having our our Christmas concert with the girls, and so I do the sound and lighting. Wow. And so I trained girls to handle that. And so just sharing what I can with the people around me is what makes it so fulfilling.
And I noticed you brought a couple objects with you today.
That's a scam I had to run. So, sister, you don't have to worry, because what's going to happen is Nicky edits. So he'll splice and move everything around. One of the Caballero Gato just brought to attention, this is the scam of getting the nuns here. Because they no longer have their Christmas bazaar. And they used to sell this up at Villa Wars. This is the pond. And I said, I'm not taking them on unless they come. I don't want these nuns coming empty-handed. I want my panjalo. So this is like the emblematic, this is the Christmas cake of the Religious Teachers Filippini. Am I correct, sister? Why don't you tell everybody out in podcast land?
This is a tradition in our community that actually can be traced all the way back to Roman times. Wow. The word panjalo means yellow bread. But this is not yellow, because our sisters don't make it the way the ancient Romans used to make it. The yellow bread came from the flour that would be on the outside. But our sisters...
Wow. That's where it came from?
I figured it was egg yolks.
See, in California, do you have nuns that have their own Christmas bread?
Well, we have nuns who are amazing bakers, who are famous for that. That's what they do. They're cloistered nuns and they bake.
Sure.
But I'm not aware of this particular Christmas bread.
Well, it's really not a bread. It's more of a candy. Sister Nicolina, who's native Italian, she makes it for the sisters every year. So this was done not so recently because she hasn't made this year's batch yet. But she uses, when she makes it, because there's so many, 5 pounds of chocolate. She does Brazil nuts, hazelnuts, almonds, walnuts, and a little flour, a little rum, or you could use whiskey. I have the recipe. I have this. It's almost all nuts, raisins.
Beautiful.
And this is the tradition of your congregation,
Yes.
your institute. So if you go in any Filipini house in the
At
United
Christmas
States
time.
at Christmas, you're going to get this.
Probably, yes.
Yes.
Not everybody knows
Beautiful.
how to make it, but they all have the recipe.
But you're going to have the recipe. Now remember, if you don't have a Christmas tradition at home and you're looking for something, this is a great thing to adopt for your kids, for your family, to tell them the story. And if you
Especially
like it,
if you like chocolate.
High
High
protein,
protein, it's high
good
chocolate.
oils. Is there any leavening in it, or
No, it's
no
just
leavening?
it's just
Then you gotta-
chocolate.
This could be your breakfast.
then you got to do the
I
Italian
don't know
thing.
about breakfast. Sugar high, no.
You got to get out that checkbook and send a nice booster to the Filipini nun. No, I'm plugging books. You got to take care of the nun.
But what about our friend over here?
Oh, we got to have it. Yes.
Well, this is just there was a company in Chicago, I believe it was, that made nun dolls, every religious community. And so they did the Filipini sisters, and so you can see she's not wearing a veil, she's wearing a little hat. And the funny part was, it wasn't funny to Lucy though, that her habit was designed by the bishop. So it looked a lot like a priest's cassock made of wool. Not the most
That
pleasant.
had to be a lot of fun in August in Italy. Black wool has to be a
Yes.
great.
It was a very difficult thing for Lucy to adjust to, but
And that's a traditional habit of your order.
right. So there are some sisters who still wear the traditional habit, but most of us in the 1960s realized this wasn't practical. To get this, because they were the pleats, and then you had the hat was all done by hand. It was just a lot of work.
I heard it was a pain in the neck to clean that bonnet.
Yes.
Sister Margarita Marquillen talked about having to unsew.
'Cause she wore the old
and
bonnet,
it's funny
yes.
that you should bring up, when you brought the bonnet up, this is like the Filipini day, because that was the other, I've had a conversation with John many, many times we call it the regrets. People that we didn't get on the podcast before they passed.
Yeah.
And I would say, I would honestly say my number one regret is Sister Margarita Marquillen.
Yeah, because she was on EWTN a few times.
She's on, and she was
And-
fantastic.
Oh, she
was
a character.
She was a character. She was if you wanted to see a typical if you wanted to imagine an Italian American New Jersey nun, that was her. She was central casting for that.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted to do an episode on her was that she really was, I don't know the right word to use. She was the catalyst that changed the narrative on Pope Pius XII,
12th.
and
That's right.
the Holocaust. Because Sister Margarita Marquillen wrote a book, and I'm sure you can still get it online. Get this book. I'm always pushing books on this podcast. Get this book. Even if you have to get it used or on Kindle, however they sell it now. Yours is a Precious Witness. And you can correct me, sister. The way I remember her telling the story is that she was at your headquarters in Rome. I guess that's the Generalate in Rome. And when she was there, she'd be over 100 now, sister, right? She'd be about 102, 103. More.
I don't know who
probably.
you're talking
Sister
about.
Margarita.
Oh, Sister Margarita. Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the story I'd heard, she was at the Generalate in Rome, and she began to hear stories of the sisters and other religious communities who had hid Jews in Rome during the Holocaust. And where the church was getting beaten up, that, the church had done nothing for the Holocaust. But Sister Margarita realized and found out through her research, and a lot of prominent Jewish people who had really condemned Pius XII, she turned their entire opinion around, because what happened was, and I'm giving the simplistic version for the podcast, whenever the Catholic Church in Northern Europe, like in Germany or in the Netherlands, had spoken out against what the Nazis were doing, they would retaliate by rounding more people up. So they get up in the pulpit and say, what you're doing is wrong, and then all of a sudden, whoever you're defending winds up on boxcars the next day. So Pius,
And sometimes the clergy themselves.
yeah, sometimes they took the Carmelite, blessed, I never get her name right.
Edith Stein.
Yeah. Teresa Mary something. Edith Stein.
Teresa Benedicta
of the Cross. Right, she was a Jewish convert to Catholicism, Carmelite nun that was rounded up in, died in Auschwitz with her sister. So Pius XII took the approach that if we just hide people, it's better.
And do it secretly.
It's better than
speaking out.
And then getting innocent people.
If your goal is to save lives.
Get killed. And Sister Margarita Marquillen really wrote the definitive book.
Well, she wrote, that was the first.
Right,
She
ahead,
wrote
sister.
several books. What happened was she actually interviewed our sisters, some of them were still alive, who had been involved at Genazi, the place where you visited, that pensione, underneath, because it was right across the street from the Jewish ghetto. So our sisters could sneak them in. The women were dressed as sisters. The children were dressed as students. And so they thought they were, and we had one nun, she was courageous. She went to the Nazis and said, I need food for my students. He didn't know he was feeding Jewish children, but that was the start of it. But then little by little, more details came out. Not only our sisters were hiding them, but Pius XII had also hidden Jews at Castel Gandolfo, the summer residence, so that hundreds, if not many, many more were being saved through Catholic institutions that hid them quietly without making a big to-do about it. We have in our Generalate a beautiful gift from the Jewish community thanking us for what we did. And even in the Pensione, there's a statue of Our Lady that they gave us as a gift because
the Jewish
we
people
thanked
gave
them.
you the statue of Our Lady. right?
As
And I just thought it's a testament because so many people don't realize. They say, Italy had a complicated World War II history, right? And that's a podcast series of its own, right? But the Italian people, at the end of the day, there's an intrinsic goodness to them, right? Where they didn't understand. I mean, with all the stuff Mussolini did, the racial laws really didn't click in Italy. Like, I don't understand why, right? It didn't click with the Italian mentality. And so many Italian religious risked their lives because if those sisters had been caught,
oh, sure.
there's a good shot they would have been they would have been dead. They would have been on a boxcar. They would have been going into a concentration camp. Like they risked their lives to
There's
save
that term
people.
like cristiani come noi, like people like us. Have you ever heard that? No? Like referring to the Jewish people. Like,
No. I never heard.
I think this
that.
is part of at least a story in Calabria where there's the famous,
Yeah, the concentration camp in Campania, the city in Campania. So I wish Sister Margarita was still here because she was a character.
Oh, she would have.
She was a character.
Yeah, and she wrote several books about how we had saved Jewish people. She had their names. She had interviewed them and put it right in her books. But then she also did an awful lot to try to bolster the reputation of Pius XII. And she had done books on him alone because she felt he was being treated unjustly.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, he was maligned because, in the days of the Soviet Union, Pius XII was a very vocal anti-communist. So the communist Eastern Europe had a incentive, the same way they had an incentive of taking out John Paul II with the assassination in 1981. The church was a voice against communism. So how do you paint Pius XII? And Pius XII came into he left Pius XI. I don't know if you know the background with this, but he was a firebrand. I mean, if I could meet one pope in history, it'd be Pius XI because he was a firebrand and he was very, very justfully antagonistic because he had been on the Mussolini bandwagon early on because Mussolini said, I'm going to fight communism, I'm going to bring stability. And then when he got a taste of what was really going on, especially the racial laws, Pius XI said Pius XI turned on the regime. So there's a lot of theories. Another book I'd like to have come on where that the fascists took out Pius XI. There's a credible theory that Mussolini did not like the negative things coming out about his regime from Pius XI, and Pius XII came in, who was a diplomat, right? So he handled things in a different way, and
and he had been in Germany,
sure, correct,
as the representative of the Vatican, so he saw what happened when Pius XI's document came out against the Nazis. He saw the retaliation. So when he became Pope, he was not going to have that happen.
Because at the end of the day, more people were killed. So that's how the Germans, but that's how the Nazis kind of evened the score. Was so if you're going to say something, well, we're going to take it out on the civilian population. One thing I have to say, I went to school with kids who had a Filipini education, because almost all the Italian parishes. But one thing people don't realize about the Italian parishes we were very late to get Catholic schools. So with the Irish, that was the first thing. If you go to the Third Plenary Council of Baltimore, so that's kind of like probably the most important council in the United States. For those of you who don't know, that's all the bishops of the United States got together in Baltimore, because that was the first see of the United States. And they sat around, I think it was 1884. And how are you going to handle this? Church is exploding numerically. And because it was dominated by the Irish had held up. When public schools were rolled out in the United Kingdom, the bishops in Ireland fought them tooth and nail, because the Irish knew from dealing with the English for 800 years that the English would try to turn the Catholic Irish kids Protestant through their schools. So in a lot of parts of Ireland, grade schools didn't come around to the 1890s. They basically homeschooled kids because they were afraid of the national school system. So when that Irish mentality came to the United States, remember when they came here, they met the same Anglo-Saxon Protestant people. Their concern was that American public schools were going to turn Irish Catholic kids into Protestants. What came out of the Third Plenary Council of Baltimore is we need to get the school first. Once the school is built, then you build the church. So there were in the very early days, there were parishes that had a school, and on Sunday they would put a curtain up and then they would have mass there, right? And that kind of was the same thing that happened in Ireland. The Italians had a different mentality, because they were not coming from a country. They were coming from a country where Catholicism was basically the state religion. So they didn't have the fear of a public school system the same way that the Irish did.
That makes sense.
And you know, the Italians and I think the Italians and the Hungarians had the highest rate of return. So more Italian immigrants came here and Hungarians and actually went back to Italy. So the earliest immigrants who came here, a lot of them were like, well, why does my kid need to learn English? Because we're going to make some money here and go back to Italy and buy goats and buy a farm. They thought that. And as time went on, people started to realize we're not going back. You know, the pressure came from chanceries. Well, you got to start to have schools. So the Italians were late in getting parochial schools because why am I going to pay for, you know, even though it was a nickel, whatever it was back then for a week, but, you know, I have the free school there. Plus you also had antagonistic pastors who happened to be Irish a lot of the time. So as they got their own parishes, they began to invest in parish schools. And that's where the sisters came in, because the sisters, your timing comes with, because some Italian parishes were 50 years before they actually got a school. And I can say, so I did go to school with a lot of kids who came from Filipini schools, and you were ahead of us on everything. I hate to throw my own Josephites under the bus, right? You and I both have a loyalty to them, but I know when we were in high school, freshmen in high school, they had already had algebra. They were ahead of us. And the other thing I want to say was, in my opinion, sister, I don't know if you find this accurate, which I think was very accurate about the Filipini sisters, where you produced a very well-rounded student.
Well, that's why, because
Music
the sisters had to be
everything.
well-rounded. They produced that in their children. So, you know, you had children who were in the schools learning language, learning music, producing their own little programs, shows, as well as learning all the basic subjects that, you know, any child in grammar school is supposed to learn.
And you did teach Italian in your schools.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so many times when the Italian language issue comes up, one thing that we don't look, and I know the Felicians, which was basically the Polish equivalent,
Sure.
they taught Polish in their school. So there's a lot of Polish Americans who were third generation, whose grandparents had come from Poland, but their Polish is very good because they had it for 8 years with the Felicians. And a lot of Italian Americans, because no one spoke Italian, everybody spoke a dialect, right? So when they got to school, the ones who do have a good working knowledge of Italian grammatically and linguistically, a lot of them had that with the Filipini sisters in their grammar school.
I think we're nearing the 1 hour mark, and
we'll wait
the
past that.
scent of this
I've been
panijala
here for 3
is like, it's so distracting to me.
now, see, can I tell you-
Hold on a second, my
You know what
tummy is
freedom-
rumbling.
you know what
I'm like,
freedom
I
feels
hope it's
like?
not being picked
When
up on the microphone.
No,
but
because
it's,
you guys say something. I'm free today.
the scent of this panijala is just, it's intoxicating. You get a different aspect,
I was
a different
waiting when
spice.
you were going to try it.
Can we try it?
I'm going to tell you what
Can we try
happens.
this?
Now you can try it. See, John's on an airplane. I'm free. So what you never see is that we're on here. I get that. We're going to round up. We're going to round up. So I
Oh
can
my
talk
gosh.
as long as I want here.
This is so good.
So as we're rounding up.
I brought you a big one.
Oh,
The
thank
nuns
you,
get
thank
little
you,
ones.
Thank you. Yeah, but well, that was bribery. I told Bishop
taking a-
Sarah made it happen. I said,
taking a copy
they're
of
not
this.
coming
Oh
if
my
I ain't got
gosh.
my Punjab, because now you don't have the market anymore. The Christmas
We don't
bazaar.
have our bazaar yet.
I got cut off. And your sisters used to make
two
great
of them.
baby clothing.
I'm going to take
I used to buy
Oh,
old
I still
babies.
make
Oh,
it.
do you make
Yeah.
it? The sisters also crochet. And so listen, we're rounding up this episode. What am I supposed to say, Nikki? John's not here. So listen, you got to do double duty. You got to follow, you got to like, comment. That brings our numbers up. If you want to get positive Italian American programming, if you like what we do here, you got to help us get our numbers up. Not that we need help, but speed it up, because thank God we're doing good.
And
right?
may I
Thank God.
say, if you're looking for a really special gift for a person,
This is great. I'm telling you something. This is fantastic.
outstanding.
I had to bring the nuns. As I said, you want to get the nun on? I told Bishop Saratai they can't come empty-handed. I want my panjawa. If you're a girl and you want to become a nun and you're thinking about a nun, why not become an Italian nun? Because the food is much better. Right? I often wondered, when I passed their house in Rome, I said, they probably eat really good. Because, you know, we had Josephites. They're Irish. I went to Chestnut Hill. It's a beautiful building. I don't know what the food is like. So if you're an
Probably
Italian
American.
girl and you're going to enter an Irish order, gastronomically it might be challenging. A Polish order, you're going to have a lot of pork products. If you're a Felician, you're going to have a lot of pierogies. But if you're an Italian girl, why not join an Italian order, a Paisan order, where everybody is going to eat just like you? And even if we have a lot of non-Italian listeners,
Okay.
Sister's Puerto Rican. If you're non-Italian, but you like Italian food and you have a religious vocation, the Filipinis might be for you. And if you do become a Filipino, you also get panjawa at Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Delicious.
And like like, subscribe, all those other things. We hope you're enjoying the Christmas season. Sister, I want to thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the service that you've given to all these children over the years, to
We
your
try.
community, to all
Try
that
our
you've
best.
done. And thank you very much, and thank you for helping out today.
Well, thank you for having us. Yeah.
Buon Natale, Merry
Buon
Christmas.
Natale.
Oh, I gotta get my, where's my kazoo, Nikki? So I do two Shandy Della Stella, Nikki?
Oh, touche. Stella,
Buon Natale a tutti quanti.
Born in Italian. If you want your life to be great, see that you're born in Italiano and your life will be great. See that you're born in Italiano and your life